You're making no bonus in here.
You're making no bonus here, Bob.
Hi, this is Trev. Welcome to my blog. Welcome back to my collaborative project with Chris Cadle from Outline Displays. Chris helped me build this unique, fabulous one-off neon sign. If you'd like to discuss your sign project with Chris, then his contact details are in the video description. So, have I been up to anything interesting lately? Man, I'm absolutely buzzing. I just got back from recording with a guy called Max Stockin. If you haven't heard of him already, then he's a hip young dude with a retro vibe. And he has absolutely got to be the reincarnation of Eddie-Cochran or someone like that. In fact, he did 20 Flight Rock. Oh, well, I gotta go with a record machine when it comes to rocking. She's the queen. Lay that funky riff on me, daddy-o. Well, I sort of just about managed to keep it down when he started playing that. Absolutely fantastic, and he will be making an entrance upon Trev's blog later on in the video montage at the end, so keep an eye out for that one. In the videos following on from this video, I'm going to give practical demonstrations of the most probably asked questions about paintwork. I'm going to give you a sort of mini series on paintwork, so it'll give you a pretty good grounding. I'm going to cover subjects like epoxy priming over bare steel, filling over the top of epoxy primer, 2K primer over the top of epoxy primer and filler, top coating over the top of 2K primer. I'm also going to show you a rusty paint effects, which is on this sign, how I did that, the products I used, how I went about it. Also going to show you how to do some fake hand sign writing and also some distressed polishing techniques. Hopefully there's going to be enough in those videos to give you a good grounding so that you can go off and paint your own car if that's what you want to do. But in this video I'm going to talk about the fundamentals of painting. So we're going to go over compressors, spray guns, personal protection equipment. We've heard enough of that lately, haven't we? And extraction and stuff like that. So before I get started, I'm talking about all the various pieces of equipment that you're going to need to buy if you're going to spray a car. I'd just like to preempt the inevitable wave of criticism that's going to be bestowed upon me for talking about paintwork on YouTube. I don't know why it is, but it is a very contentious issue, so I'd just like you to make the various considerations that I'm going to tell you now. So I'm going to tell you a few little stories that'll give you a bit of an insight into why I'm going to go about my videos the way that I am. So let's talk stories. So I haven't sprayed professionally since 1999. One consideration you can make there straight away, I have helped out in paint shops in different garages since then. So I've kind of kept my hand in, but I haven't sprayed professionally since 1999 from start to finish. Let's tell you a few stories. Last place I worked in, Race and Restoration. Very, very high-end sports car restoration company. So we're talking cars in excess of £100,000 value. In excess of. So we're not talking about cars that when they're all restored they're worth about £10,000. Certainly not. So the kit that they used was extremely high-end. So we're talking professional spray booth with good lighting and extraction, rotary vane compressors and expensive starter jet spray guns, mixing rooms with the latest paint mixing technology, internet connectivity to the mixing scales, etc, etc. Made an extremely good job of everything. They really did. I thoroughly enjoyed working there. Hi Steve, if you're watching. It was brilliant because you were working on cars that you just would never normally see. I mean, the only thing I was used to looking at really was cars that were completely mullered in the accident repair trade. So I only really take race and restoration as an example. I could be using the other body shops that I've worked at, but they weren't so in on the quality side. I'll talk more about this as I go on with my stories. So there's race and restoration. So I've put you in the frame of the type of equipment they were using, because everything was really high end. Now, if I was to make a beginner's video about paint spraying and say, well, you need to spend about 50 grand on equipment before you even start, well, absolute waste of time talking like that. And I have seen a lot of YouTubers talking about kit to beginners, would-be beginners, and they're kind of, you know, they're way up here, and it's putting you off before you've even started. So I'm going to give you a spectrum. So another example I can use, Martin Campbell, a brilliant engineer. I've known him for a few years, been always very interested in what he's up to. Hi Martin, if you're watching. And Martin Campbell, last project he did, strapped 2 lawnmower engines together to put in a motorbike that he made. He made the frame, he made the tank, the seat, everything, and put this, you know, engine, Frankenstein engine in there. It was 2 two-stroke engines that he managed to get running together. Absolutely amazing. Well, one of the last projects he painted was this Renault, I think it's called a Renault CV4, I think it is, and he made a really good job of it. And I said to him, Martin, you've made an excellent job of that. I'd just like to say you've made a really good job of that. And he said, he's one of these guys that says, oh, thanks, Trev. I sprayed it outside using a £10 spray gun I bought from Lidl in the special offer department. Well, I just, you know, absolutely blown away. And then he took second prize at a beauty car competition. So well done, Martin. So I'm not for one moment suggesting that high-end body shops should be using £10 Lidl spray guns, but there you have it. He made a really nice job, probably not up to the standards of race and restoration, but nobody's even considering that, are they really? But it just goes to show what you can use as opposed to having all the full range of equipment. So that's just one consideration I'd like to make. So why is it that they use all this really expensive kit then? Well, what you've got to remember is these are seasoned professionals using that equipment. Let's just use an example. If I put you Race and Restoration's spray booth, so you're in there painting the gun, all ready to go. I'm in an open workshop with a 50 quid spray gun. It's your first job you've ever painted. You've never painted before in your life. I will make a better job than you will, even though you've got all the latest kit. And that's because of experience, of course. I mean, for my 50th birthday, which was a few years ago now, my family clubbed together and got me a Gretsch guitar. Now, I didn't get that guitar out of the case and pick it up and say, well, that's funny, I can't play exactly like Brian Setzer. That's because I hadn't had the experience of playing that guitar. And it's exactly the same, you know, if you're going to pick up a spray gun, then you're going to have to sort of grasp the concept of spraying before you actually use it and make a nice job of it. So that's another consideration you need to make. So why do they invest all that kit and all that high-end stuff? Well, the thing is, it's repetition. So it's all about volumes. How many cars you're going to paint. If you're only going to paint 1 or 2 cars, then you can buy a spray gun that isn't going to last that long. You know, it isn't going to be a heavy duty bit of kit. It'll spray nice for 5 or 6 paint jobs, and then it'll start going wrong. But it's okay, because you're only going to do 1 or 2 jobs. You know, we're not talking about you spending £500 on a starter jet and you're only going to paint 1 cars. Though they are using those starters every day, day in, day out. So that gun's going to have to last, you know, for hundreds and hundreds of paint jobs. So that's why they spend the money on it. The other thing is that these spray guns are very, very clever. Their technology is to put the paint on the car and not in the air. So a spray gun, traditionally, you're spraying it, a lot of the paint will actually go into the air and not on the job. So you'll use far more paint to get the same result. And that is another reason why they spend all that money on those high-end spray guns. If you're only going to do 1 or 2 jobs and you're going to be using budget paint, then you don't need to spend those extra hundreds on that equipment because you're never going to take advantage. So hopefully you can see what I'm saying, what, you know, the recommendations I'm going to make are all based upon that and from my own experience. So that's why I've said what I've said. So let's start. Let's talk about compressors. So we're up for all the equipment. So we'll start with compressors first. I can only really talk about the UK market when it comes to compressors. If you live somewhere else in the world and you haven't got a 230 volt supply, then comments in the comment section how you produce the amount of air you need to do your spray work, because I ain't got a clue about those kinds of things. So I just give you the best advice I can if you live in the UK or you've got a 230 volt single phase supply. I know some people might have a 3-phase supply, but you're going to be in the minority, aren't you? So there's a massive range of compressors available. Best advice I can give to you is try and buy something that's the largest cubic feet per minute that you can afford, really. And if you can't afford it, then I would just save up a bit more money, to be quite honest with you. The 2 compressors I've had have been around 13 cubic feet per minute, and they've been pretty much just being able to keep up. So anything much smaller than that is going to struggle, to be quite honest with you. So it's just worth saving up that extra bit of dosh. There's also the twin motor, twin cylinder type ones that go up to 30 some odd cubic feet per minute. Never used one of those, but they'd be a really good investment, but they're going to cost you a lot more money, obviously a lot more again. But like I say, 13 CFM seems to be around the largest single motor, single cylinder compressor that seems to be available to the UK market, and they work okay, they just about keep up. I've had friends that had smaller compressors and they have struggled, have done things like charging up old propane bottles to give them an extra reserve of air. But what you've got to remember is you've got that extra reserve, but once that's depleted, then the compressor's going to have to work really hard at charging it all back up again. And if you're in the middle of painting something and you need to get that paint on and you have to stand there waiting for the compressor to charge up, it's not really going to be much good, is it? So that's the best advice I can give on compressors. Let's talk about the air and the water in the air that comes out of compressors next. I did a video on water removal, so removing water from the airline. I did that a few years back. I'll put a link in the video description to that video so you can go and watch that, because I went in depth on how I made a drip leg, drop leg, or whatever you want to call it. So basically the air that comes out of a compressor is warm and moist. Ooh, sounds a bit rude. And what that will do is it will kind of rinse the water out of the air, and then you'll get your spray gun like that and you'll let the air come out. You watch the air at the end of the spray gun and you'll have bits of water keep coming out, chuffing out like that. Now if that water gets in the paint, which it's going to, it's going to go do one of 2 things. You're either going to end up with micro blistering in the paint, so you're going to have lots of little blisters all over the paint, or if you're painting bare metal, then you're going to have water directly in contact with the metal. The metal's going to go rusty, it's under the paint, it can't get out because the paint's going to seal it in. Basically it's going to be rusting from the outside in. So that's why you need to remove the water from your airline. Like I say, I made a video on a DIY water condenser and it's worked well for me. I use it alongside water traps, so it's not the only thing I use. I've got like an old HPC, it's quite an expensive thing, which I just bought it second hand for next to nothing off eBay, but it still works, and that just wrings the finer little bits of water out. But I would say that my drop leg that I made out of an old scaffold tube, that probably takes 95% of the water out of the airline before it gets to those finer filters, and then they just filter the last little bit out. And it works well for me. I haven't had the issue of micro blistering and rusty steel where the water's been coming out of the airline. So it seems like I've been successful with that. So when we're talking about budget spray guns, well, there are thousands and thousands, it would seem, of spray guns out there on the market. Well, I've been able to lay my hands on about 10 spray guns, so let's just whittle it down to these few. I only show you this one really out of interest, historical interest, because this is the paint gun I was using to paint when I last painted professionally. This was the kiddie to have back in the 1980s, early 90s. It's a Hvlp JGA, and this is what all the professionals were using in their day. It's an old suction feed gun, meaning the pot's on the bottom, and yeah, painted many cars with this. It absolutely weighs a ton compared to modern day paint guns, but it was a great bit of kit in its day, but I'm certainly not sort of advising anyone rush out and buy one of these. Next up is another gun. So I've only shown you these three. So I've got a gun that paints really heavy, so I can use this gun for undercoating, I can use it for furniture painting, I can use it to apply textured paints, spray fillers, all those kinds of things. And this is a Sealy SSG 501. It looks like a bit of a naff gun really. I mean, the build quality looks really poor, although it's not bad at all actually. It's stood me in good stead. And I actually converted it to run with a pressure pot when I used it for undercoating my Bedford van. It's got a 2.2 air cap on it, meaning that it's quite a heavy gun. So the higher the number, the more paint that it lets through. So you're going to be flooding more on the car, but it's going to be much more textured the higher the number. The lower the number, the finer it's going to be, rule of thumb. And the less air it's going to use, the less paint it's going to use, and the finer it's going to be. So you want a lower number for top coating and a higher number for primering. So lower number, again, this is a 1.8 air cap in this one. This is a Duran stroke fast mover spray gun. They've sold millions of these spray guns and they've been very successful. You can purchase these off eBay for around about £20. Exceptional gun for £20. I've also used this for furniture painting a lot and applying lots of different coatings, like different primers, epoxy primers, even thick epoxy primers. And it's a very good gun. I've never used one for top coating, but I should think you could still make a reasonable job if you bought a 1.3 air cap model. And I should think, yeah, you'd still make a reasonable job or something with that. Now this is the gun that I bought solely for painting my Bedford. So this is the last paint gun I bought. This is an Iwater chrome flash with a 1.3 air cap. This is a fantastic bit of kit. It's very well made. The build quality is exceptional. It's given me no troubles at all. It's lovely and light, and I've got nothing negative to say about this gun. It's got quite a nice wide fan as well, meaning that you have to put less strokes when you're painting with it. And yeah, it's a real good bit of kit. This one comes in at around £100–120, that kind of money on eBay. So these are the three spray guns that I thought I'd show you. So we've gone from heavy to light, you know, primering to top coat. I think it's only really worth showing you these three, and these are the three that I've been most impressed with out of all the guns that I've bought. Maybe you've bought a spray gun yourself, a budget one, that you'd like to comment on in the comment section, because as I said in my intro, I can only give you my experience and make a video based upon that. And these are the conclusions I've come to, but I have not tried out every budget spray gun on the market. So if you've got something you want to mention, please do so in the comments section. Something I've only touched upon is Hvlp, high volume, low pressure spray guns. None of these spray guns are Hvlp guns, these are all just conventional spray guns. So what's the point of a Hvlp gun? Well, high volume, low pressure, meaning that there's high volume of air at the spray gun which atomizes the paint real finely. So that it lands on the car, gives you an excellent finish,
and it's actually projected from the gun at lower pressure, meaning that less of the paint goes in the air and more goes on the car. The problem for the DIYer is that you will only be using a small compressor. I mean, the places that I've worked at are using compressors of around 70 to 100 cubic feet per minute, and as I said, mine's the largest single phase compressor, producing around 13 cubic feet per minute. And these Hvrp guns demand a large amount of volume of air, and if the air volume actually drops off, you've got to keep it at quite a stable rate. If it drops off, then it radically changes the performance of the spray gun, which isn't helpful when you're halfway through painting a car.
So let's talk about spray rooms and extraction, and all the recommendations I'm making here really in this video are kind of like the minimum requirements, I would say, and I would say it's an absolute must. I know that people don't, and I suppose that, you know, if it's a one-off, then it perhaps really isn't going to matter, is it? But let's just say you intend on doing a few jobs, then you really need to have some kind of extraction built in to your workshop. Again, I can only tell you the things that I've done in the past. So I've built 3 workshops and built in homemade extraction, and I've done the same in all 3. I've basically built a great big box so I can enlarge the area of extraction and put a filter in there. If you just put a very small filter over a powerful fan, what will happen is that fan will drag the paint through a small piece of filter and it will be blocked up almost immediately. So like I say, big box I've made, like a big screen with some chicken wire on it, and then I've put the filter on the top. Now the filter is this stuff, it looks just like this. It's like a great big spider's web, and the paint particles can't get through it. So when you look the other side of the filter, there's no paint mist coming out. So that's pretty important really when you think about, you know, environmental things and the surrounding area, which is a sensitive issue, I know. So what I would say is, it's not up to me, it's got absolutely nothing to do with me where you're intending to paint, but you've got to use a large dollop of common sense here. What I'll do is I'll just show you a quick sketch of how I've made extraction in a workshop. So I've built a box, I've put a fan in it, so that fan is behind the box and it's drawing the air through the workshop, through the box. So there'll be a filter on the outside, so anything that's filtered through there goes through that filter, gets trapped in that filter. Have to remember to let the air in, so you have to have an inlet as well. So a reasonable size inlet. I have found that the fan that I've used isn't powerful enough to have a decent inlet filter as well. So I've literally just got a thin piece of cloth as an inlet filter, which I just blast off of the airline in between painting things. And I've got a hollow section in the roof, and the air is drawn through the roof from another part of the workshop, which I can heat. So that'll actually provide the workshop with heated air when I turn the extraction on, which is quite important if you're going to be painting in the winter, of course, because if you're painting in the winter, you're going to be drawing freezing cold air in, and you need to have the temperature at a kind of minimum really. You don't want to be drawing freezing cold air in and then spraying, because you need to keep your panel temperature as high as possible.
In a professional spray booth, the outlet filter would be set into the floor, but obviously it would be a hell of a lot of work to do this for a DIY application. So this would be referred to as an end extraction. The outlet filter is at the very end of the workshop and it's as low down as possible. The inlet filter is situated in the ceiling the other end of the workshop, and this is to ensure that the fresh air comes in and replaces the air that is contaminated with overspray, because it enters in high up, sweeps down diagonally to the other side of the workshop, meaning that there's less chance of pockets of overspray left hanging. If this was set at floor height, then there'd be a very good chance that there would be a pocket of that overspray hanging high up in the air, and having it like this gives it a much better chance of clearing effectively.
So last but certainly not least, let's talk about respirators and spray suits. Well, I just use this Gerson canister respirator, and it's got the activated charcoal filters in it, which are okay for 2K isocyanate products. I also wear one of those forensic police type overall thingies, white suit, spray suit, zip up the front, hood on, and they're ever so reasonable. They're worth their weight in gold, and they got a twofold purpose. Most overlooked is they keep the environment dust free. So on your clothes you've got lint and fluff and everything else. If you're just going to wear old clothes to spray a car, then all those bits of lint and fluff are going to end up in the paint finish, ruining it. If you wear a spray suit, which costs you just a few pounds really, I mean they're ever so reasonable, and I wear mine 5 or 6 times till it's through and I throw it away. I just blast it off the airline in between, so if I'm just about to paint something and it's an old suit, then I just blow it off the airline. That just gets anything loose off it. Then I'm protected as well, because not only does it keep the environment clean, it also protects me from paint getting on my clothes and on my skin. The only thing I would say is I am slightly susceptible to isocyanates through my eyes, because my eyes, I don't wear any goggles or anything like that. But this is a great point to make. As I was saying about extraction, if you're turning over the air in the workshop rapidly, then the concentration levels are going to be so much lower. If you're wearing a raincoat and leggings and you go out in a rainstorm, then you're probably going to be dry. But if you then jumped into a swimming pool, then you're going to be wet pretty quickly, and it's the same as spraying in a workshop where the volumes are incredibly high because you've got no extraction. You just open the door at the end and the whole place fills up with paint, and you can't see your hand in front of your face. If you're doing that, then you're asking for trouble. But if it's almost clear all of the time, then that personal protection equipment hasn't got to work very hard to keep you safe. Think about it like that. What else can I say? Air-fed respirators, used them myself in the past. Mixed feelings about air-fed respirators. Biggest mistake you can make, compressor in the corner, and it's dragging in the air from the spray shop into the compressor and then feeding it directly back to you. Don't laugh, a lot of people have actually made that mistake, worryingly. The other thing about air-fed respirators is there's a tendency for people that use them, they're spraying a car like that, and it gets misted up, and then they stand there and they lift the air-fed respirator up to see the job they've painted, because they can't see as well with it down. Also, they disconnect it, they walk out of the spray booth and they go to the mixing room and mix and paint up, and they've got no extraction in the mixing room, and then of course they're breathing in all the fumes from the paint that they're mixing up, and you do get a lot of fumes off paint that's being mixed up. And if you're wearing one of these, then you're a bit more protected, I believe. I think I've practically covered everything I want to. If you are at all worried about isocyanates and intoxication of poisonous substances, then my best advice to you is don't get involved in paintwork. Don't do it. And an excellent comment to make would be that there are a great deal of people that enjoy restoring classic cars, and they get someone else to do the paint job, and it works pretty well for them, because it's another set of skills and another huge investment that they haven't got to make, and they're still a big part of the restoration of that car. And then a professional can come along, put the top coat on, and in some respects it might even be cheaper doing it that way, because you haven't got to invest in all the extra kit and all the paint and everything else that you're going to have to use to paint that car. And then if you're not very good, then it's never going to look truly professional unless you're really hell-bent on learning that extra trade. And I've made this video for those people that are enthusiastic and they really want to see every part of the job through right to the end, and that's why I've made this video for you guys. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you got something from that. Hope you didn't find it too boring, but I was really just answering the questions that have been, you know, repeatedly asked to me about paintwork. I hope I didn't bore the pants off you too much. I'd just like to say a couple of things before I go. In case you missed it on the last video, because perhaps you didn't watch it, I was approached at the Tewkesbury Classic Car Show by this company called Revive. I think it's owned by 4 guys. One of them's a chemist, and they only are literally a couple of miles up the road from me. I didn't know anything about them until a couple of months ago. I was approached by Neil at the Tewkesbury Classic Car Show, and he gave me some of this quick detailer. Says, hey Trev, try this on your Bedford, see what you think. So I thought, I've got to give them a plug, and they've given me a discount code for you guys as well. And one of them's a chemist. They formulate all their own stuff. They do all the waxes, the polishes. Like I say, this is a quick detailer. I used it on my Bedford, and it's really nicely packaged as well. Would make a great stocking filler. Blimey, we're already talking about Christmas. Anyway, I put a link in the video description and that discount code if you're interested. Also, enough people said that they were interested in seeing a detailed video on all their product range, so I'm gonna have to go back to them now and ask Neil if he wouldn't mind participating in a video. And if he doesn't mind rather, then we'll do a video, you know, soon, ASAP, showing their full product range and what it's all about. Anyway, a short while ago I was walking through my local town and I could hear somebody singing All My Lovin' by the Beatles, and the closer I got, the more perfect it sounded. Even my wife remarked upon how brilliant it was, and it really was brilliant. And then a couple of weeks ago, we went to M&S. I think my wife wanted to buy a jumper or something. Very middle-aged we're becoming now, aren't we? Anyway, the same guy was busking outside of M&S window. Instantly sort of thought, that's that same guy that we saw a couple of weeks ago that I absolutely thought was brilliant. And he's kind of like an Eddie-Cochran, Buddy Holly, and his own unique quirky vibe all rolled into one, and he really is a special guy. And I thought, I wonder if I get his card off him, I wonder if he would be prepared to put a bit of music on this channel, because my mind is constantly playing music. I mean, if I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I've still got the jukebox, you know, it's think it over what you just said, think it over with your pretty little head, just constantly playing all the time. So, you know, I listened to this guy and he was singing really, really well, whereas I sing really, really badly. And, you know, it was music to my ears, folks. So anyway, he's done quite a few interesting bits and pieces. He's released his own music as well. He's even been on the BBC. So anyway, I won't waffle on any longer. I'll leave you with the wonderful Max Stockin. Please follow him. I will put links in the video description to Spotify, Instagram and Facebook. And if you're in the music industry, please contact him. It's criminal if you don't. And like I say, please follow him and give him a like and say Trev sent you along. Anyway, until next time, I shall say bye for now.
Well, I've got a girl with a wrecking machine. When it comes to loving, she's the queen. We love to dance on a Saturday night, and all alone I can hold her tight. She lives on the 20th floor of town. The elevator's broken down, so I'll walk 1, 2, flight 3, flight 4, 5, 6, 7, flight 8, flight more. Upon the 12th I'm starting to drag. 15th floor I'm ready to sag. I get to the top and I'm too tired to rock. Well, she calls me up on the telephone, coming over honey 'cause I'm all alone. I said, baby, you're mighty sweet, but I'm in bed with the aching feet. This went on for a couple of days, but I couldn't stay away. So I walked 1, 2, flight 3, flight 4, 5, 6, 7, flight 8, flight 4. Thank you. On the 12th it's too late. You know I love my baby too much to wait. All this climbing is getting me down. If I'm a cold baby over the rail, so I'll walk 1, 2, 5, 3, fly 4, 5, 6, 7, fly 8, fly more. Up on the 12th, I'm starting to drag. 15th floor, I'm ready to sag. I get to the top and I'm too tired to rock. You know I get to
Here's
the top
Johnny.
and I'm too tired to rock. Woo. You know I get to the top and I'm too tired to rock. Baby, do you mind if I could take a little time to tell you I've never been more at home than in the single bed between us two. 'Cause it's you, yes it's you, and no one else will do. No one, no one but you. Lie against the pillow and we can dream of futures together. Sing and dance and laugh with me, you're the one I'll treasure forever. 'Cause it's true, yes it's true, I'm falling for you. Falling, I'm falling for you. And promise me this isn't all a dream. Just one night and then goodbye. Forgive me if I sound absurd, but baby, I just wanna adore you. Never fight, turn off the light, crawl under the covers when we want to. 'Cause it's you, yes it's you, and no one else will do. No one, no one but you, yes it's you, and no one else will do. No one, no one but you.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.